E-learning application PROMIS. Planning. At the top of the menu, you will find a description of the individual sections of the game and their basic operation. At the bottom, you will focus on creating a specific plan. As the planning phase is very similar for all projects, it will be explained mainly on the example of the Eco House project. The description section lists the parameters of your project. The Eco House project is dedicated to the construction of a passive house at a contractually agreed price. According to the contract, you have 52 weeks to build the house. 1 week equals 1 game round. The specific parameters of the round may differ for different projects. See the description section for details. The basic goal of this simulation game is to plan and implement a project within a given time frame, with the lowest possible costs, and other specified parameters must be met or considered. Regarding the Eco House project, it concerns the so-called image. You will find out about this later. In the technology section, you will find a list of jobs that need to be done to complete the project. The jobs follow each other, and it is always necessary to have all dependency relationships, i.e. continuity, fulfilled in order to continue. For example, at Eco House, the first job is digging the foundations. Until that work is completed, no subsequent work, such as drainage and exchanger, can be performed. Along with the title and description, the costs of the given job are provided along with certain conditions under which the work cannot be performed. The most common example of a constraint is usually the weather, which you must consider during project planning. For example, almost half of the work cannot be performed during the winter. Individual jobs are performed using so-called work teams. Detailed information about their costs and parameters can be found in the Work Teams section. The Work Teams section shows employees with the equipment and materials needed to do the job. During the planning and realization of the project, you may encounter several types of work teams. In the case of Eco House, these are your own workers representing your company employees, and subcontracted workers representing subcontractors of specific jobs or craftsmen. Workers can be reliable or unreliable. Reliable workers always show up on time to the scheduled work shift. For unreliable workers, there is a possibility that they will not come to the scheduled work shift at all. In the case of Eco House, you have 4 workers of your own, and you cannot use more in a given round. Subcontracted workers are not limited by how many, but the ratio between costs and generated performance is generally worse than with your own workers. In the case of outside, unreliable workers, the risk of them not coming to the shift needs to be considered when planning, but they are cheaper than your own workers. Each type of work has a maximum number of workers that can perform the work in one round. At the same time, workers' costs are different for each job. So are the amounts of penalties that you face during realization if you decide to cancel the work team or move work to another day. You will deal with transfers and cancellations of work teams during project realization, for example, in the event of bad weather or if there is a shift in dependency relationships of jobs. You will assign the work teams to the individual jobs for each round in the Team Planning section. The sections Planning and Cost Calculation are then used to create and compare your plans. You can thus create multiple plans, for example to compare the total costs or assess risk. Then you choose the plan that you will implement in the second phase of the game. So, if you want to assign work teams to jobs, you will do so in the Team Planning section. Here, you will assign available workers to individual jobs. It is always necessary to monitor the dependency relationships of jobs, factor in the risk of bad weather, or consider whether you will use a reliable or unreliable work team. It is key for each job to be gradually planned up to at least 100%. For easier planning, you can use the Add Multiple button, where you simply select the team type and enter only the beginning and end weeks. In the Gantt section, you can clearly monitor the planned work using a Gantt chart. If the work is not scheduled up to at least 100%, it will be displayed here over all rounds without displaying the end. The grey fields, which you will see only during realization, show the reserves for the given job. In the cash flow section, you can see an overview of income and expenses for individual weeks. Usually, you will not have the funds for the whole project available right from the beginning, and you will gradually run out of money. The project will need to be financed through loans. The program can calculate their amount for you itself. To do this, use the Equalize Cash Flow button, which you will use after planning jobs. This performs calculations and arranges loans automatically to keep the project out of debt. In the realization phase, the game itself provides you with loans, so you don't fall into the red. The Cost Overview report displays a table with the key parameters and values of your plan. The goal of the planning phase is to create a valid plan that meets the following conditions. All jobs are planned at least 100%. The limits of work teams for individual jobs are met. The cash flow is balanced, and the technological continuity of these jobs is observed. Just because the plan is valid does not mean that it is good or of decent quality. The individual risks and constraints need to be considered, along with the planned costs. It is also vital to create reserves in the form of extra work teams or unscheduled weeks. If your plan meets the conditions for validation and you have considered all the risks, you can enter the second phase of the game, realization. Usually, you have only one possibility of realization, so it is best not to go into this phase hastily with a poorly prepared plan.